This channel was originally created for me to share my thoughts with myself and potentially at some point with people that want to know me and people in general that just want to find out stuff, real perspective of things. For the better part of almost a decade now, this channel has not been living up to its purpose for myself and for various reasons. What I really want to intend to do with this channel was very personal, and I really wasn't prepared to just be honest about everything with everybody. And I'm going to change that starting today. So from this point forth, anything and everything that gets put up in this channel will be from legitimately what's up in my head, with the way that I see things, the way that I view things, my critical thinking, just to kind of instigate thought process in you guys and hopefully create some discussions and maybe help you guys, kickstart your brains, because a lot of people today are just not using what's in between those ears. They're just not thinking. They're just trying like floating through life and just behaving like other people that want to fit in. And fitting in is stupid. You're basically 99% of the people, sheep, and the other 1% is the one that's running your life. So you got to learn how to think, and you got to learn how to view things and how to critically think things. So this first video that I'm making today is you guys' opportunity to basically decide whether you're going to be on this channel or not. It doesn't matter to me. It's a blog for me. I'm not planning on ever doing any AdSense on this channel ever again. So I don't care about getting paid. It's more going to be a library of vlogs and diaries from me from this point forward because of my age. I'm 40 years old. Some of you guys may or may not know that. I turn 41 next month. Don't care if you like it or don't. It's just something that I don't hide behind my age or don't want you guys to know my age. So I'm gonna start at the beginning, and I'm not gonna give you guys the psychiatrist chair approach to this. It's just give you some quick, just overview strokes. So you may or may not be able to relate to me, but I grew up without a father. Not because he was a deadbeat, not because he was a bad dad, not because he ran away, not because of all those reasons. My father passed away 26 days before I was born due to cancer at the age of 44. He was trying to hang on until I was born. He just didn't quite make it. My father was a Korea War veteran. If he was alive today, he'd be roughly 84 years old, because I am 40. And my mom right now is 69 years old, so there's a big age gap difference between my mother and my dad of about 15 years. Both of my parents, my mother, which is still alive, have advanced degrees. My mother's a master's degree. My dad was a doctorate degree. My dad was on the Board of Education for Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. He was a VP of a university in Puerto Rico. And my mother, being a master's degree, was the director of the admissions department for the Department of Medical Sciences. So if you wanted to be going to medical school, my mom's the one that basically gave you the green light or red light on that one. So both of my parents have been very academia. My mom is extremely rigid. My mom raised me in a very Christian home, very structured home, very disciplinarian home, just very in this box type thing. My mom is a follow the rules, step by step kind of person. The law says 35, you do 35. It's just, my mom's like that. I'm very abstract. I like to think of outside the box. What if you add this? What if that happened? Are you saying that if I do this, this will happen? I mean, I like to think of all these things because I like to exercise my brain. I like to critically think things. I like to solve problems. So that's kind of my mom. That's why my mom and I really just butt heads, even to this day. My mom being 69, me being 40, we still have different opinions. We really can't have a religious conversation of me giving philosophical views because she's obviously in that this how things are, and they just don't pan out that way. So this first video, the topic that I really want to cover has to do with religion, has to do specifically with Christianity and salvation. I'm not trying to convert any of you guys, make you subscribe to my things. If you guys you guys are Buddhists, Muslims, atheists, whatever, it doesn't impact my life at all. I'm literally just sharing this for the sake of you guys doing critical thinking by something that you probably may not have ever even thought about or heard before. I'll start by saying this. I do believe in God. What his name is, Jesus Christ, Allah, Bangala, whatever, I don't know. I really don't know. I just believe that there is a supreme creator of everything. However, I don't believe that that creator created everything. I do believe that some of his creations created other beings. And that's what we're going to go into today. When I was 27 years old, actually, before I go into that, you guys know that I went to school, university, and all those kind of things. So when in the way that, in the schools that I went to, it really forced you to push yourself with thinking, just push the envelope and be abstract, just be ridiculous sometimes with the ideas, because they saw it as, it's almost an artistic way of doing. The more creative you think about anything, the more you really expand your brain, because you're creating new neurons and new connection channels in your brain, which makes you faster. That's why when you do something a lot, it becomes like second nature. You can do it without thinking about it, because your brain is just creating these connection channels and makes that so much faster and proficient for you to do. The same thing basically with the way that Purdue University worked with kids. So because of that, when I graduated from my degree, I started in pre-med in Purdue and I went to finance and economics. And I graduated from UCF and got basically dropped into a non-working mode because it was 2001. Actually 2002, after 2001, so there was no job, no career at all that I could go into at that time. So at any rate, so during that time, I started questioning just a lot of things, you know. I don't know why, I don't know what drove me into it. I think I was having conversations with my mom and we're not seeing eye to eye on religion, and what she was kind of spoon feeding me my whole life. It just didn't quite make sense. And obviously I grew up in a Christian middle school and a Christian high school, and even the things that they made you do that you couldn't say because of this, is like, you guys think you have this thing figured out. Like, you guys think you have God, a creator of everything, time, space, present, past, and future, just all figured out. And I'm thinking, what the heck do you guys know? What the hell do you guys know about what he wants and what he doesn't want, and what he thinks or doesn't think, or anything? I mean, you guys don't even understand the origin of man, much less physics, and much less time and space, or even your brain. And you're going to tell me that you understand God in and out, that you know exactly what he wants, how he wants you to do it, what he needs? It's like, that to me is the most ridiculous thing. So in me going from that belief that I was just rebellious, not against God, I was rebellious against what people wanted you to understand and believe that God is. That I'm like, you know what, I'm curious about all these things. So I started at the root of everything, salvation. You know, it started to not make sense to me, salvation, the way that's presented to me, because I know that if I buy, let's say, this remote right here, I know that remote comes with a guarantee. If it breaks, I get a receipt, I go to the store, I get a new one. My phone, for example, if I take my phone for the better part of a year, something happens to the phone, I can go to Apple and get my phone changed. And it's got salvation, it's got a guarantee, that's what salvation basically is. If you do this, you're guaranteed to get that. That's what a guarantee is. And what salvation is. If something breaks, I can go ahead and replace it. So it started to not make sense to me that a supreme being that controls time, space, present, past, and future, knows it all, is omnipresent, omnipotent, he didn't foresee what we would do. So in doing that, in parting from that question, I started researching. And I remember I was 26, 27 years old when I started this quest. And I became so just driven by it that I was just voraciously reading from the moment, and I'm not even exaggerating, from the moment I would wake up in the morning almost to the time I would go to bed at night. And I started researching religion, and from religion it took me into astrology, astronomy, the stars. From that it took me into banking, health, and probably out of sequence, but banking, health, nutrition, education, food, government structure, and all these different topics. And when I got back to when it brought me back to exactly where I started, I knew that my study was done. And I don't remember how long it took me, but it was months probably doing this. And one of the most interesting things that I came across was the Sumerian tablets. And if you guys know, Sumerians, or Mesopotamia, as the origin of man, is supposed to be the oldest book known to man, or the oldest tablets known to man. Some of them have been translated by a guy by the name of Zecharia Sitchin. So in me reading these tablets, and also having been exposed to the Bible for the better part of like 6 years in school, plus the time that I went to church with my mother and everything else, a lot of the things that were in the Anunnaki or the Sumerian tablets were basically stories that you would find in the Bible. The difference is that the Bible, per what we're told, is 2,000 years old. The Sumerian tablets are from like 5,000 BC. So I'm thinking, that means that the information that we have, much like anything else that we're given by the mediums of information, is restricted. Because if anybody that's watching this video believes that what you get in the news, in a newspaper, in a magazine, is legitimate, 100% pure information, and what your understanding of the world, banking, education, nutrition, healthcare is 100% correct, you are one of those people that is asleep. That's the sheep. You don't know what's going on around you. You're basically the equivalent of the people that are inside the matrix, that are plugged into that battery and are living in this fantasy world. You're the people that are asleep. You're not the people that are awake that really say, oh, we're out of the matrix. Like, we're in this garbage freaking town. Like, this is what this is. So when I did my research and I came across these tablets, I started reading and reading and reading and reading. And in these tablets, they talk about an alien race called the Anunnakis that live in this planet called Nibiru that has a 12,000 year orbit. If you research Nibiru, Anunnakis, and whatnot, or even the Sumerians, Mesopotamia, you'll find out that the Sumerians actually mapped out our solar system. And in the solar system, they did account for 12 planets. The difference is this. They counted the planets from the outside in, where we go Mercury number 1, Venus number 2, Earth number 3, 4 is Mars. They counted from Pluto in. Actually, never Pluto, from the planet Nibiru in, their planet. And they basically made Earth the 9th planet, or the 10th planet actually. So it's funny to say, okay, how, unless you're coming from the outside, you really don't count in that sequence. You count from the inside out, not from the outside in. So these tablets talk about this race, the Nibiru race, that has this planet every 12,000 years. It comes very close to the Earth's orbit, and when it gets close to the sun, sorry, not Earth's orbit, it has 4 times the density of Earth. That means it's a very compact and heavy planet, which means that its gravitational pull, it's stupendous in comparison to Earth's. And every 12,000 years it gets close to the sun, but its atmosphere really cannot withstand the heat of the sun. Therefore, it needs to have an atmosphere made of gold. Now, this may not make sense to you, but if you know or look into the visor of NASA astronauts, that visor, even though it's made, I believe, of glass or whatever material it is, the inside film, which is why it's gold, is actually 24 karat gold that they utilize to reflect and refract the sun. So it makes sense that if that's the atmosphere for our face when we're supposedly out in space and exposed to the sun, when the turn comes to be exposed to it, then it makes sense to be utilizing it as an atmosphere. Now, how it works, I don't know, because I know that when you use that gold foil stuff, you know, gold is pretty light. It pretty much, it's almost like when you burn paper and the ashes kind of rise. I think gold is one of the few metals that can be made that fine in a gold leaf, and actually is very delicate. Actually can be suspended and can be utilized to reflect and refract. So from that standpoint, it made sense to me that gold be utilized for that. So this race, the Anunnaki, supposedly were looking for a worker race that they could create so they could help them mine the gold that they needed to basically protect their atmosphere. So they would send some of their young, quote unquote, to basically go on this quest. They landed on Earth, and Earth already had a population of animals and whatnot, and they were basically looking to create this worker race. If you read further in the book of the Anunnakis, it also talks about that the asteroid belt that's located between Mars and Saturn is actually full of gold, which is justified nowadays. If you guys have done any reading in that, right now they've identified multiple asteroids that are worth like quintillions of dollars. I mean, many times what the Earth is worth nowadays, which is again what cryptocurrency would be utilized for if we were to terraform a planet and had to transfer money. You wouldn't do it with by filling up space shuttles full of money. You would do it with a cryptocurrency, very much more transferable and much faster. So in trying to get this race to basically become workers, they start experimenting in Earth, which if you go and look at some of the carvings in these walls that they have in the Mesopotamia during the Sumerian era, they actually have what we use today as a sign for medicine, which is that staff with the 2 snakes wrapped around in the wings. Something very similar to that's actually etched in stone in one of these hieroglyphics in Mesopotamia. So per the book, what it states is that when they landed here, they were basically trying to create the race. So they used monkeys. Monkeys because they had hands to grab and whatnot. They were strong. They needed people to work and to just, follow instructions. So they were doing combination of different things, just like what we do today. When we have, for example, today 2 gay men that want to have a kid, what they do is they take the man's egg, in this case a semen, they take some female, they take her egg, in a test tube. They inseminate the egg with the semen, and then they embed it in a separate mother. It could be the same one that gave you the egg, or it could be a separate mother altogether. So they were doing the exact same thing to create basically these beings, which turned out to eventually be us. They're doing it by taking the egg of the monkey, the semen of a monkey. They're taking the egg of an Anunnaki woman, the semen of an Anunnaki woman, and just test trialing it and embedding it in a monkey and embedding it into an Anunnaki woman, and eventually a functional being that could communicate, that could be coordinated, because they had a lot of failed experiments, including that they were utilizing initially alien instruments and alien beakers, if you want to call it that just weren't working. So they had to actually make instruments here of earth materials with earth elements, so they can utilize and actually do these experiments so that it would work. Eventually they came up with what's now supposed to be the human, both male and female. So they created the female and the male, and just like it states in the Bible, they had a Garden of Eden per se, and in that garden basically is where they observed men and women kind of grow together and also attempt to procreate. But they noticed that even though they created more than one woman, more than one man per the book, they were mating, but they were not procreating. That means that either the male was sterile or the woman was sterile. So just like it tells you in the Bible that supposedly we have one less rib than woman, because one of her ribs was taken to be given to create Eve out of, the book of the Sumerians actually states that what happened is that because the female was missing a chromosome or a gene, they basically took that from man, gave it to the female, so that now when they had sexual intercourse, the female could actually give birth and become pregnant, and then procreate and proliferate the workforce that they needed to actually go out and mine this gold. The book wasn't really clear whether they're planning on mining this gold in space or whether they're going to mine the gold here on Earth, but we know that there's been plenty of gold inside here of planet Earth. So that happens. It gets created. Obviously, this being gets created per se. And now here's where the question, or my philosophy comes, or my way of thinking, my critical thinking of where God comes into place. So you're probably thinking, hey, Rico, if God's all-knowing, all-powerful, controls everything, omnipresent, omnipotent, and he knew all these things were going to happen, why not just cut through the mustard and not have these things happen? If God for what the Bible says, was your creator, and he knew we were going to sin, why not just avoid all those situations that occurred and just give you salvation, make you a non-sinning thing, so he doesn't have to sacrifice his son to give you salvation so you can worship him to get access into heaven? The same thing happens here. If he knew that these beings were going to do that, then why? And then he had to sacrifice his son to give that being salvation, which is what my theory is. Then why not just cut through the mustard and just avoid all that? And I said, and to that I say this: that's the equivalent of you trying to understand God from the inside out. We're never going to understand the why, because it's the exact same thing for all you guys that are watching me through a computer or even built your computer. It'd be the exact same thing as if you've never seen anything outside the computer, but you live in the computer. You're born and raised inside the computer. You cannot go outside of your computer case. But there's a whole new world out. The whole complete different world in my room that anybody that's inside of my computer, the microscopic beings, cannot see, because they can't escape the case. But they're trying to understand me or understand creation, how they became part of that case. They'll never know. There's not a single piece in this computer, in the RAM, the memory sticks, the video card, the processor, the motherboard, the CD-ROMs, the hard drives. There is nothing in there that's going to give you any insight into me. Very little. I'll let you know that the being is smart, that it was obviously organized, they had a plan, that these lights came from somewhere. You'll get some data, but as far as true understanding as to the reason why, the purpose of that, there's no idea. And I'm here watching you from the outside and see if you can figure out. It just might be entertainment for me. Like, let me see what they figure out, see what they come up with. I'm entertained by this. Let me see what they derive. Because again, we supposedly had free will. I'm not going to have the answers to all these questions you guys may have. I'm just giving you my thought process. So, for those of you that don't believe in God or atheists or whatever, I'm not trying to convert you. Like I said, you can believe whatever you want. It's just, again, my thought process. So to me, it didn't make sense that we weren't born with salvation if we were created by a supreme being. Now, if we were created by a secondary being, and then that big, gigantic, all-powerful being took mercy on us and then decided to give us salvation so that we could get access to the afterlife, or in my case, heaven, then there has to be a guarantee that has to be given to us. Like, for example, I bought a car that is a Kia. I have a Kia Optima that I drive for work. So I have a Kia that I didn't buy at Kia. I bought it at a Chevrolet dealership, but the Chevy dealership gave me an extended warranty for that car for a certain period of time. Something breaks, you come to me. You don't come to the manufacturer. I'll give you salvation. So that's the equivalent how I can justify my thought process. Something that didn't create you can still give you protection, even though they didn't create you, because it has the power to do that. And that's kind of how I see that we fit into this whole scheme of salvation with religion and everything else. So we're created by these beings. We're supposed to be this workforce, and obviously, supposedly this being gave us salvation. That's what makes sense to me. That's what makes sense to me. For those of you that are believers of evolution and the Big Bang Theory, again, I have nothing against your belief. Your beliefs are your own. You don't affect me, much in the same way that my beliefs don't affect you. But for those of you that believe in evolution, in that we came from H2O mixed with carbon in this goop, and then some way, somehow, life came out of it because atoms started splitting or whatever, I got just one question for you. Evolution has to happen at all levels, and the most basic and the bottom of the scale level is molecular level. So if we came from H2O and carbon, as supposedly the Big Bang Theory and evolution suggests, the question is this: where did the periodic table come from? You can't make, I would tell you 95%, actually none of these elements out of carbon and oxygen. It just doesn't work, or H2O doesn't work. Oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon don't make gold, don't make xenon, don't make iron, don't make gold, don't make platinum, don't make, chromium. It's like, where does that come from? Because that means that the elements themselves had to evolve into something bigger. Now, everybody that took chemistry here knows you can only have two types of reaction: oxidation or reduction. And that's basically how molecules, atoms combine themselves to become molecules. But under no circumstance is one of the atoms becoming something different. It's merging to create a molecule that's composed of those atoms. So you might have a C3H15, depending on how many covalent bonds you can have. I'm just making something up, but you really can have, even 100 million atoms of oxygen just convert because you have enough ions in their molecules into gold. Because if that were the case, that means that I should, in some way, shape, or form, through oxidation or reduction reaction, be able to convert anything on this desk into gold or platinum. I should be able to. So that puts a really big monkey wrench into my even consideration of evolution and the Big Bang Theory. Evolution, because explain to me then the evolution of the atoms. Explain to me those things. Explain to me the periodic table. How did that come to be when we had three? Even if we had 5 elements, it doesn't matter. You have 5 different atoms. Explain to me how the other came to be then. It doesn't make sense to me. The other part that doesn't make sense to me is the Big Bang Theory. So you had these asteroids that collided together, this gigantic Big Bang, and it happened. I mean, these had to be monstrosities of asteroids. And I'm talking bigger than our entire solar system, bigger than our entire galaxy, bigger than probably multiple galaxies put together. These things had to be ginormous, because nowadays we have been able to map an extremely large portion of the universe, and we still can't see end in sight, and it's huge. And you can Google search this. It's humongous. So I mean, what is the magnitude of those asteroids that created supposedly this whole thing? But that's not even the point. The point is, even in the Big Bang Theory, let's say that it is correct, and they're saying that asteroids created everything. Okay, who created or what created the asteroids? Again, we're talking about inside the computer. These asteroids are inside the computer case. So who created, outside the computer case, who created the asteroids? And people, once again, are looking for the answers inside the computer case. So if you can think the universe is everything, all the components inside of a computer case, and trying to tell you, yeah, all these components came to be because 2 asteroids collided together inside the computer case. Okay, that's fine. I can accept that. Who the hell put the 2 asteroids in there? Because obviously, I'm sitting in my office, and there's a whole lot of stuff outside of this computer case I'm looking at right next to me. So to me, evolution and the Big Bang Theory just don't quite make sense. It is it makes more sense to me that there's something outside of us that has created these things, regardless of what we came to be, and that there is something higher than us. There has to be. There's too much complexity in the world for it to just not be that way. What you call it, Jesus, Allah, whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't even believe we have the right name, honestly. I don't even think that God is Jesus Christ or that God is Allah. It's kind of like, and I don't think he even gets upset over it. It's kind of like me. If let's say, it's gonna sound really bad and really pompous, but let's say that I'm supposed to be God, and then some people believe, well, God, his name is this, and God, his name is that. It doesn't matter. Do you believe that there is one? Whether you call your boy Ryan, Jason, Mike, Ezekiel, whatever, it's still the same guy with 15 different names. It doesn't matter. It's still the same exact individual, and that's what I think it really is for this this topic, at least. That's kind of how my brain thinks of things. I don't accept information just because somebody wants to give it to me and spoon feed it me. If you guys believe everything that you're given in a magazine, in the radio, in the TV, in a newspaper as 100% factual, let me tell you, you're a lemming. You are a sheep. You will accept any reason for something so long as it kind of makes sense to you and at least answers your question. But you will never torture that information. Therefore, you can be led whichever way I want you to be. Because so long as I give you information that satisfies your curiosity, like, that sounds good enough, but you're too lazy to do research and question what I give you, you're just being led like the sheep. You're the people in the Matrix that are hooked up to the battery, and you're living in this world that is fake. You're not the people that are awake, that are looking and saying, this world is garbage, this is trash, but I know how to live in it now. I know how to look at things from what perspective. And that's the difference of being awoke and being asleep, of what people are talking about today. So this is my first video of many. Like I said, this is going to be the genre that I plan on covering. I'm not going to pigeonhole myself into doing X amount of videos on this dates by this time, because it's this blog is more for me. Like I said, I'm not planning on making any money off that. I don't care about making AdSense. I will make $0 on all these things. It's gonna be basically for me. It's gonna be a vlog, just me being real with myself and the people that are out there that take time to watch these videos and want to use their brain rather than freaking being fed all that information out there. So for all you guys that watch this video, I appreciate you. If you want to stick around, cool. If you don't, also cool. We'll see what the next topic is. You guys be safe, all right?